Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. With the Blade trilogy arriving on Amazon Prime in the UK, I took the opportunity this weekend to blast my way through all three of them because why the hell not? And I was very keen to rewatch Blade 2, aka the Guillermo del Toro one, because why wouldn't you want to watch a Guillermo del Toro monster movie? GDT has a strange time in Hollywood. They seem to meddle and they seem to want to get him involved in franchise fare, and sometimes they can work and play well together and sometimes they don't. Hollywood for years and years and years have been trying to find a fit with Guillermo del Toro. I think the closest fit they probably got was Hellboy, and then decided not to give him a third Hellboy movie. I don't understand it, but here with Blade, we had a fantastic first movie that sort of felt like a blast of fresh air. Boom, let's do it again. And Blade 2 is a little bit of a rinse and repeat with slightly more money, slightly slicker, and a sprinkling of GDT magic on top of it. And it is that magic, it is that sprinkling which makes it. They've zhuzhed up the action scenes with a little bit more CG augmentation, which I'm not as fine with. I appreciate that there was probably some CG augment in the first movie. Well, once that springs to mind. Blade in the first movie does a big jump. But here they have to be doing flips and stuff like that, and you can kind of see when you can see the seams really mixed in between what's some really cool martial arts stuff. It suddenly flips over into, now the characters are doing jumps and flips and they're really kind of ragdolly bendy, quite clearly CGI renditions of these actors. I find it so strange that those moments are really jarring when at other times the new type of vampires, the Reapers, clearly have their opening Predator-style jaws CG overlaid onto the actor, because then it all comes back and seamlessly and we're back with the actor again, and that all looks really great. So why can't you, if you can do it here, why can't you do it there? But it was the early 2000s. Computer animation was really janky. Hey, computer animation nowadays is really janky with all the crunch. Even a $200 million Marvel movie, they'll crunch the fucking computer team and they'll put a product out that in places will look like absolute dog shit. So at least I feel this is a case where everyone tried their best, and at the time it looks as best as it can, and now some 20 plus years later it just looks like old CG. That's fine. So Blade is back. He is still the mythical daywalker fighting the vampires who are still trying to unlock the ability to come out in the sunlight. And once again we get a third act where Blade is bled almost dry because his blood is the key, and then rather than drinking his serum, which prevents the thirst for human blood, he drinks some actual human blood and powers up in time for the big battle, mixed in with a weird kind of riff on Aliens. This movie is a strange experience watching it now, and you can see the bits that they took from previous movies, and even more interesting bits from this movie that Guillermo del Toro himself took and put into later projects. It's a weird kind of, there's clearly a passion from him behind this, because there are elements from this that he has taken and run with. Not least the design of the Reapers and how that sort of new type of vampire feeds, looks and spreads, absolutely morphs into his series of books with Chuck Hogan, The Strain, and then the TV series that was developed out of that by Carlton Cuse with Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro sort of producing and with their hands on the levers of that. The subplot in Blade 2 of the the son of this sort of emperor character who has been sort of banished and coming back for revenge is revisited again by Guillermo del Toro himself in Hellboy 2, and the antagonist in both of those movies is played by the same guy, Luke Goss, which is really weird for us viewers in the UK because Luke Goss, with his brother Matt, first came to our attention as part of the pop act Bros. But Luke Goss does a great job as sort of an action antagonist. He doesn't have the martial arts chops of Wesley Snipes, but he's got more chops than Stephen Dorff did in Blade. To hunt down and eliminate this new vampire strain, Blade must team up with a group of vampires called the Blood Pack, who were put together and trained specifically to hunt and kill him. So there's this nice little frisson and this antagonism going on, and there's this mismatched team dynamic, which is very reminiscent of Aliens. This is sort of like Blade does Aliens through a Guillermo del Toro lens, and there's nothing not to like about that, really. As you would expect from him, GDT fleshes out his world of vampires. I think the vampire world was excellently realised in the first movie, but Guillermo del Toro is a wonderful world builder, so now we get sort of shots of weird sort of vampire body modification going on in their nightclubs, cool sort of razor blade down the tongue French kissing, powdered blood that vampires snort, jellied blood that the vampire ancient can eat just so that he can have it on a plate and eat blood with a knife and fork. All these little touches are so Guillermo del Toro. He loves the tactility of a fantasy world and a world full of monsters. He loves trying to make them as real as possible. You can see it shot throughout his Hellboy movies, and it's at play here as well. The Reapers themselves are superb antagonists. I remember when the movie came out in 2002, I think you just never seen vampires like them. The look of them, the animalistic nature of them, the way the contagion spreads. I mean, it's absolutely something he takes wholesale and runs with and develops even further in The Strain. But they were sensational here. And I think possibly the best example I can give in microcosm of how this is more of the same but with a little bit extra. The big fight at the end. So after Blade gets drained of his blood and then drinks some more blood to juice himself up. In the first movie, he gets drained a little bit and then he drinks from a woman and then has a big fight. Here, he falls into a massive vat of blood and comes out all hyper-powered, and then has a big fight which is martial arts mixed in with, and here's the little sprinkle of extra, wrestling moves. And I don't know why people don't do that more, because the wrestling moves, when I saw it at the cinema, went down like absolute gangbusters, and watching it again, play like absolute gangbusters. So much fun, and that's what Blade 2, I think, brings to the franchise. More of the same, yes. Slightly bigger, yes. Slightly better, in places yes, in places no. But certainly more fun. It's recognisably the same world that the first movie was in, and it has its own story to tell. We go a little bit deeper into the vampire world. Thomas Kretschmann's playing the main ancient vampire, and it always tickles me seeing him. I'll always, first and foremost, remember him from Dario Argento's The Stendhal Syndrome, but it's quite funny now watching him in this, knowing that he also played Dracula in Dario Argento's interesting Dracula 3D. I think he's actually pretty great here. So it's a standard Hollywood sequel. It's a remix that's slightly bigger, that's had slightly more money thrown at it. But I don't mind that, because it's still an absolutely fun time. Blade Trinity comes next, and that's when I think you can see even more of the meddling coming in, and even more of the accountants having some sway over what story gets told. But we'll talk about that next time when we get to Blade Trinity. But for now, Blade and Blade 2 have been an absolute romp to return to.
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.